Welcome. Today we're diving into the fascinating world of economic welfare, focusing on two key concepts: consumer surplus and producer surplus. These ideas help us understand how buyers and sellers benefit from market transactions. By the end of this video, you'll see how these surpluses measure the well-being of both consumers and producers, and why they matter for the overall economy. Let's start by exploring what surplus means in everyday life, before we get into the technical detail. Surplus in economics refers to the extra benefit or value that participants receive from engaging in a market transaction. Imagine you're buying your favorite snack and you're willing to pay $5, but the store only charges $3. That $2 difference is your surplus. Similarly, if a seller is willing to accept $2 but gets $3, they also gain a surplus. These surpluses are not just numbers, they represent real gains in satisfaction and profit for both sides. Consumer surplus is the difference between what consumers are willing to pay for a good and what they actually pay. It's a measure of the extra happiness or value buyers get when they purchase something for less than their maximum price. Think of it as a bonus for shoppers. The bigger the gap between willingness to pay and actual price, the greater the consumer surplus. This concept helps economists gauge how much consumers benefit from market prices. Producer surplus is the difference between the price sellers actually receive for a good and the minimum amount they're willing to accept. It represents the additional profit producers make by selling at a higher price than their lowest acceptable offer. For businesses, producer surplus is a sign of successful transactions and efficient markets. The larger the producer surplus, the more incentive there is for producers to stay in the market and keep supplying goods. Better understand consumer and producer surplus, let's look at a simple supply and demand graph. The area above the market price and below the demand curve shows consumer surplus, while the area below the market price and above the supply curve shows producer surplus. These shaded regions help us see at a glance how much benefit each side gets from market transactions. Visual tools like this make economic concepts much clearer. Surplus isn't just an academic term, it's a practical measure of economic welfare. When consumer and producer surpluses are high, it means both buyers and sellers are benefiting from market activity. Policymakers and economists use these measures to assess the health of markets and the impact of policies. Understanding surplus helps us see who gains from changes in prices, taxes, or regulation. Calculating consumer surplus is straightforward. For a single transaction, subtract the actual price paid from the maximum price a consumer is willing to pay. For the entire market, it's the area under the demand curve and above the market price. This calculation helps businesses and economists estimate how much value consumers are getting from their purchases, and it's a key part of market analysis. Producer surplus is calculated by subtracting the minimum price a seller is willing to accept from the actual price received. For the whole market, it's the area above the supply curve and below the market price. This measure shows how much extra profit producers make, and it's crucial for understanding incentives in the market. Higher producer surplus often leads to more production and innovation. Market equilibrium is where supply meets demand, and it's the point where total surplus, consumer plus producer surplus, is maximized. At this price and quantity, the market is most efficient and both buyers and sellers are getting the greatest possible benefit. Any shift away from equilibrium, like a price floor or ceiling, usually reduces total surplus and creates inefficiency. Let's look at a real-world example. Suppose you're willing to pay $50 for a concert ticket but you buy it for $30. Your consumer surplus is $20. Multiply this by all the concert goers and you get the total consumer surplus for the event. This simple calculation shows how markets create value for consumers, making entertainment and other goods more accessible. Now imagine a bakery willing to sell a cake for $10 but actually sells it for $15. The $5 difference is the producer surplus. If the bakery sells 100 cakes, the total producer surplus is $500. This extra profit encourages the bakery to keep baking and possibly expand. Producer surplus is a powerful motivator for businesses to innovate and compete. Total surplus is the sum of consumer and producer surplus. It represents the overall benefit to society from market transactions. Economists use total surplus to judge whether a market is operating efficiently. When total surplus is maximized, resources are allocated in the best possible way and everyone is better off. Taxes can affect both consumer and producer surplus. When a tax is imposed, it raises the price buyers pay and lowers the price sellers receive. This usually reduces both surpluses and creates a deadweight loss, a loss of total surplus that isn't gained by anyone. Policymakers must weigh these effects when designing tax policies. Deadweight loss is the reduction in total surplus that occurs when market transactions are restricted, such as by taxes, price controls, or monopolies. It represents lost opportunities for both buyers and sellers. Understanding deadweight loss helps us see why efficient markets are so important for maximizing economic welfare. Price ceiling is a legal maximum price for a good or service. While it may help consumers in the short term, it often reduces producer surplus and can create shortages. The result is usually a lower total surplus and less overall welfare. Price ceilings are common in housing markets like rent controls, but they come with trade-offs. Price floor sets a minimum price for a good or service, like minimum wage laws. While it can boost producer surplus for some, it often reduces consumer surplus and leads to surpluses of unsold goods. Price floors can create inefficiencies and reduce total surplus, highlighting the delicate balance policymakers must strike. When a single seller or group controls the market, they can set prices above competitive levels. This reduces consumer surplus and creates deadweight loss. Market power, like that of monopolies, often leads to less total surplus and less economic welfare. Competition is key to maximizing surplus and ensuring fair outcomes. Efficient markets maximize total surplus by ensuring that goods go to those who value them most and are produced by those who can do so at the lowest cost. Any interference, like taxes, price controls, or monopolies, reduces efficiency and surplus. This is why economists advocate for free and competitive markets whenever possible. Consumer surplus isn't just a theory, it's visible in everyday life. Sales, discounts, and special offers all increase consumer surplus by letting buyers pay less than they're willing to. This is why shoppers love deals and why businesses use promotions to attract customers. Consumer surplus is a win-win for both sides. For producers, surplus means more than just profit, it's a sign of a healthy, competitive market. When businesses can sell for more than their minimum price, they have resources to invest, grow, and innovate. Producer surplus drives economic growth and job creation, making it a vital part of the economy. Total surplus is a key measure of social welfare. When markets work well, both consumers and producers gain, and society as a whole is better off. Economists use surplus to evaluate policies and market outcomes, always aiming to maximize social welfare and minimize losses. While surplus is a useful measure, it doesn't capture everything. It doesn't account for fairness, income distribution, or externalities like pollution. Economists must consider these factors alongside surplus when evaluating policies. Surplus is just one piece of the economic puzzle. Governments use surplus analysis to design policies that improve market outcomes. For example, subsidies can increase producer surplus, while targeted tax credits can boost consumer surplus. The goal is to enhance total surplus and social welfare, but trade-offs are always involved. Opening up to international trade can increase both consumer and producer surplus by allowing markets to specialize and trade efficiently. Consumers get access to cheaper goods while producers find new markets. However, some industries may lose out, so policymakers must balance the gains and losses. Digital markets like online shopping platforms have transformed surplus. Technology reduces costs, increases competition, and often boosts both consumer and producer surplus. However, new challenges like data privacy and market concentration require careful analysis to ensure markets remain efficient and fair. Innovation increases surplus by creating new products and lowering costs. Consumers benefit from better choices and lower prices, while producers gain from selling innovative goods. Surplus analysis helps us see the value of technological progress and why supporting innovation is crucial for economic growth. Market failures like externalities or public goods can reduce total surplus. Pollution, for example, imposes costs not reflected in market prices, lowering social welfare. Addressing market failures is essential for maximizing surplus and ensuring markets serve everyone's interests. You'll often hear about consumer and producer surplus in news stories about new taxes, trade deals, or regulations. These changes can shift surplus between groups and affect overall welfare. Understanding surplus helps you interpret economic news and policy debates more clearly. Let's recap. Consumer surplus measures the extra value buyers get, while producer surplus measures the extra profit sellers make. Together, they form total surplus, a key indicator of market efficiency and social welfare. Understanding these concepts helps you see how markets work and why efficiency matters. In summary, consumer and producer surplus are powerful tools for measuring economic welfare. They show how markets create value for everyone involved. By understanding surplus, you can better appreciate the benefits of efficient markets and the importance of sound economic policies. Thanks for joining us on this journey through economic welfare.